All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. I am joined by Sankarshan Das. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Fifth Dimension.
My pleasure to be here, Evan.
Yeah, and really excited to chat with you. And I feel like there's a lot that I myself can learn from you, the listeners can learn from you. And I'm really intrigued by your story. I mean, I'd love to start off talking about your journey specifically a little bit. I know you. I think it was back in the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, you were a musician sharing the stage with groups like Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead, and you ended up becoming a monk and just, seeking spiritual perfection, as you described it. I mean, I'd love to hear about your journey into around that time period and sort of what brought you to where you are now.
Well, it was a very depressed college youth. It didn't make any sense.
Mm.
My father always said, son, your college days are the happiest days of your life. And he dropped me off at Austin College in Sherman, Texas, and moved into Baker Hall. I was miserable like anything. And nothing made sense to me. They wanted to teach us about this and that, but they didn't tell us why we existed, what the meaning of life is. None of our course, we even studied all the great philosophers, and they didn't tell us anything about them. We had a course called Basic Studies, which studied the whole history of Western civilization. There was no real answer as to why I exist, what the purpose of existence is. So I didn't know what to major in. The liberal arts school, 2 years, you take the liberal arts and you have to choose your major. Nothing made any sense. But I went to one production of our theater department at Austin College. They had a very nice production of The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. And it was very impressive, a little arena theater. And at least in theater, you can forget about reality and into a virtual reality. So I'll go into drama, so I can forget about the painful reality and into a virtual reality. But then I transferred to one of the leading drama schools in the U.S., University of Texas Drama Department. Every course was drama. The whole thing was drama. And I was looking for, I'm going to be an actor. Yeah. And then one day when the graduates came and told us what it was like to be in the real world of theater, I went, So I didn't know what to do. But then somebody told me about one of the co-students at the drama department, the break room, told me about something called self-realization. So I took some home study courses from what's called the Self-Realization Fellowship. They had me sit in a dark room and stare at a candle and become self-realized. And one of our friends dropped by and was freaked out when she saw me and my staring at the candle movement. This isn't it. So I burned those lessons, finished. Then I heard there was something called Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He gives you a mantra, you can become self-realized. I had to pay money to get my mantra. And I chanted it, but nothing happened. That didn't work. So what to do? I don't know. But then some friends of mine invited me to move to Denver. They were musicians. I was also a musician. And so I moved to Denver. They sang a song called Pack Up. If somehow you could pack up your sorrows and give them all to me, I could use them, you would lose them, give them all to me. Somebody's willing to take my sorrows away. They invited me to join them. So I moved up there. And then they said, well, you can't stay with us. You got to find your own place. So, all right, I got to live alone again, in a strange city. But then I ran into this person who I had met in Austin, who seemed to be very, I was having a watermelon party with that couple who sang Pack Up Your Sorrows, and they're on the street there in Austin and outside our apartment. And one really cool-looking hippie guy, he looked like John Lennon in the White Album, he had the glasses and the beard.
Right.
He spoke with his wisdom, and there was something about him. His name was Patrick Dolan. And I was really impressed by him. And then he disappeared. He was just visiting his parents. I didn't know where he went. He was in Austin, and I ran into him on the campus also later that day, and I sat with him, and I was really impressed by his demeanor. But then he was gone, and he was only visiting his parents. He went back to wherever he came from. But then it turned out he was lived in Denver. And when I got that new apartment, he lived 1 block away from my apartment. Wow! And he went to
Wow.
the same. He also went to the same college I was attending, Metropolitan State College. I went, wow, this is really something. So he was a person I really looked up to. He seemed like he had spiritual realization, and I was really impressed with him. So one night, I went over to his apartment to visit him. His roommate said, Joe said, he's gone over to, I think his roommate's name, but he said, he's gone over to Joe's place. So Joe lived a couple of blocks up from me there on Lafayette Street. So I went over to Joe's place, and they were all there. They were just taking LSD, and they invited me to join them. But I had so many bad trips. I said, no, thank you. I just went home and went to bed. But then a few minutes later, there was an impassioned, quiet knock on my door. And Patrick came in with everybody minus Joe. And they said, Joe flipped out on LSD. He took all his clothes. He took all his record albums. He was smashing them against the wall. He's running down the street, smashing his fist in the car windshields, going door to door, knocking on the door, saying, there's LSD in the water. Can you give me a drink of water? So they came to hide out with me and said, don't turn on the light. Don't turn on the light. So we're sitting there in this room. They're all like freaked out. And I just got woken up. And it's really, and then Patrick started going like this, He said, everybody chant this, it'll protect them. He started going, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. He just kept saying it again and again. So I went to his apartment the next day. What is this? What were you chanting, Patrick? And he showed me an article from the Saturday Evening Post about the summer of love in Haight-Ashbury, and how there was this Swami named Bhaktivedanta. And he introduced this mantra, became very popular with the hippies in the summer of love. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. How this mantra will give you all protection. Mm-hmm. So I copied it out from the Saturday Evening Post, and I was really impressed. I got a picture of Radha and Krishna. Actually, I have it here, the copy of the original picture. I found this picture of Radha and Krishna in a gift store, a beautiful poster.
Wow.
And I had this made. I had it sitting on my desk. So I got a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, Krishna says, if you offer me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I'll accept it. So, oh, wow. As a Christian, we never knew you could ask God for things. You never knew you could offer something to God. This was something cool. Wow. I can actually give God something, take it from me, So just asking him, give me this, give me a Cadillac, a brand new Cadillac. No, here you actually serve him, it's a whole different mood. Right. I like that. Well, and so I was vegetarian diet. I was offering all my food to that picture of Radha and Krishna, and I was chanting Hare Krishna. So now what I'm going to do, what's my career going to be? I said, I know what I'll do. I'm going to renounce the world, go to India, one of those holy men in India again. Just renounce the world. And I had a couple of hippie girlfriends. We weren't not lovers, but just pals. Mm-hmm. And they were going to hitchhike to New York and get a job on a steamer, a freighter, a freighter to go to India. So I was going to rendezvous and we're going to meet together in New York, get a job working on a freighter and get a free passage to India that way. So I was all excited. Man, I'm going to go to India, renounce the world. That was my plan. Mm-hmm. There are actually hippies who did it. It went there, they had matted locks and everything. Some hippies actually did that. Yeah. So that was my plan. Also, one of those hippies who went to India and became one of those holy men in India with matted locks and the whole thing, a little loincloth, the whole thing. Right. So, I was the whole move was renounce the world, deny everything, deny. So I went home for Christmas. I didn't tell my parents my plan, but this is the last time I'll see my parents, the last Christmas. But then I had a realization one night, sitting there in the den of my parents' house in Houston. I was thinking, well, if I deny everything, my plan is deny everything. But then I said, wait a minute. If you deny everything, denial is also something. So the perfection of denial is to deny denial also
Mm-hmm.
and accept something transcendental to this material world. Said, the world deliverance mission, yes. There was a whole idealism in the summer of love in Haight-Ashbury. We're going to revolutionize the world, a spiritual revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, just maybe something left out there in Haight-Ashbury. It was 68. It was only like a little, in the summer of 67, and now it's late 68. It's about 14 months later. I said, maybe something's still going on there in Haight-Ashbury, So I just, I didn't tell my parents. I put the guitar out the window. I walked around like I'm just on an afternoon walk, and I took my guitar and suitcase, actually. I just headed out with it in my thumb and no money at all to San Francisco from Houston. I got to Austin. I renounced it by throwing my IDs in the trash can at the University of Texas. And I'm just going to depend on God and go to Haight-Ashbury for making a spiritual revolution on this planet.
Mm.
So the first day I got there, I was thinking, well, I'm going to sit down and just start singing my guitar there on the sidewalk. And the police came. There's a new ordinance, no sitting on the sidewalk. They wanted to curb down the hippies. What to do? Well, I'll just become a roving, I'll just walk up and down Haight Street singing. So I became the roving minstrel in Haight-Ashbury. The regular fixture in Haight-Ashbury, the roving minstrel up and down between Stanton and Golden Gate Park, back and forth on Haight Street. But there was a meeting, a bunch of hippies, how we can make the hate beautiful again, and there was a whole idea. And they even said, you're going to do it. You're going to make Haight-Ashbury beautiful again. So I had some encouragement from the hippies, what I was doing, Yeah, we'll make the hate beautiful, and then we can make the whole world beautiful. That was my idea, But sometimes it wasn't so, vibes weren't that great in Haight. And I heard there was some really cool things happening in Berkeley. So I went over there, and there's a whole scene with up and down Sprout Plaza was a campus minstrels with hundreds of people hanging around. It was a huge scene. So I sat down and had huge crowds would come, and it was really a big scene for musicians that back in '69 in Berkeley. I don't know if it's still going on. It was really big in those days. You could be a campus minstrel, an instant superstar on the campus instantly. It was amazing.
Wow.
So I did that and became a campus minstrel at the University of California, and then I actually wrote 300 songs in my course. And then that's when I went over and got on the stage with the Airplane and the Dead also around that time in Golden Gate Park. The MC predicted I was going to become a big name, after that. They built the crowd roar. They loved my sound. And so anyway, things got kind of bad. The Altamont concert happened, where everyone thought this was going to be the Woodstock of the West Coast, but it was horrible. The Hells Angels murdered some guy. It was just, the vibes were going down, 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 down in the West Coast. And the hippie scene was just like, instead of love and peace, it was it was what's called it was the militant movement was coming in, like, killed off the pigs, kill the police. This whole militant thing was coming. Instead of love and peace, there's a whole militancy movement happening now. Right. And Berkeley was put under martial law, and one guy got blinded, one guy was killed by the police. It was the vibes were getting really bad. So let me check out Austin, maybe a little more mellow. I went there and became an instant sensation. I tried plugging back in and being a student again. Living as a renunciate, just with a guitar and staying wherever I could stay and whatever food came, kind of a mood. It was tough living just as a hippie itinerant singer, but with no money and no job, you know what I mean?
Right.
So let me plug back in, get a job, get a degree, just go ahead and do it. So I tried it. I went back to Austin. I got a job as a janitor in the evening, and studying and during the day, but I was really missing those days in Berkeley and in San Francisco. So one day I just took my guitar to the campus, and I became an instant sensation on the University of Texas campus. Huge crowds would come every day. It was kind of like Berkeley, but I was the only one.
Mm, that's
I was a big
wonderful.
sensation on the campus, and then they invited me to be the house musician at the popular campus, a vegetarian area restaurant, and it was looking really good there
Mm,
for a while. But I was going through a whole search. You see, I really wanted to achieve spiritual perfection. I was doing my music, but I needed to have spiritual perfection. I know I didn't have it yet. So I was trying to figure out, what Jesus Christ was self-realized. How can I achieve it? That was my idea. How can I achieve that same perfection that Christ had? So I was reading the Bible trying to figure it out. And every morning I'd read the Bible. And one day I found it. Christ says, Father, not my will, but thy will be done. Yeah, that's it. It's got to do what God wants, not what you want. But I had one problem. I didn't know what God wanted me to do, you see. Now,
mm,
Saul got his Damascus experience. God said, you are now Paul, and here's your mission, right? I was waiting for my Damascus experience, but it wasn't coming. What to do?
mm,
So I was doing a gig at a vegetarian co-op, and up there on the stage, singing the song. And it's kind of depressing. There's only one little girl in the audience, and a musician's ego. Oh my God, only
mm.
one little girl in the audience.
Right.
But I did my thing, and the most amazing thing, that little girl was a messenger from God. Do you know what happened?
Well,
And I finished the song. You know what she did? This is unbelievable. She came up to me. I didn't say a word. I just finished the song. She came up and she said, don't worry. God can hear you. Can you
mm,
imagine? She
wow.
read my mind, and she told me such deep wisdom that God spoke to her.
Mm,
Don't worry. God can hear you. You see?
wow.
You're depressed that I'm the only one hearing you, but don't worry, God can hear you. So I
Wow.
went, wow, that's amazing. Just see how God spoke to that little girl. And then
Mm,
I was thinking, here I am waiting for God to tell me what I should do. I can't hear him, but he can hear me. So now I had a new mantra. Dear God, please guide me how I can become your perfect servant. And then as Hare Krishna Swami shows up in town.
mm,
His Holiness Vishnujana Swami. And he presents the full. I knew that I'd associated with the Hare Krishnas, but now I'm really open. Let me put this away.
all right.
And now I'm really open to what they have, what their philosophy is.
Mm,
That actually we're the eternal servants of God. And he reveals in the Bhagavad Gita exactly what our duty is, what we're supposed to do. I'm like, wow. And at this time, George Harrison just come out with My Sweet Lord, because he was also
yeah.
getting into Hare Krishna, you see.
Mm,
And I think, well, yeah, I'll write, not George, I'll write Krishna conscious songs. So that'll be my thing. I'll write just like, he's written, I'll do the same thing George is doing. But then the manager at the restaurant where I was the house musician. He said, "Oh, you can't sing any songs about Krishna at the restaurant." There
mm,
went my gig.
wow.
So what to do? Well, the devotee said you can move into the temple if you want. So okay, I just move into the temple and live there as a guest. And they didn't say I had to be a monk. They wanted to be a guest.
Right.
I'll write Krishna conscious songs there live in the temple. And participate in the temple, but write Krishna conscious songs. That was my plan. I'm not going to become one of those shaven-headed monks. No way. I had my long hair and my beard.
Yeah.
And there's no way I'm going to be a shaven-headed monk. But anyway, we one day we were out chanting on the street, and somebody from a record station walks up and he hands us this album called the Radha Krishna Temple album, produced by Apple Records. He said, this is too spiritual. We don't want to play it on our radio show, but you guys might be interested in this. Wow, George Harrison had produced this amazing album, devotional songs in Sanskrit
Mm,
that we sing in our temples as a regular daily affairs. And the second cut was Samsaradava Naladida Loka Chanaya Karyunya Gana Ganatvam Praptashakayana Gunanavasyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. It's a song of devotion to the spiritual master. So I was vacuuming the rug, and I had it playing. Let's see what happened. I just lost my thing. What happened? Let's see. Okay, now we're back.
All right.
Yeah, I was vacuuming the rug, and I was hearing this, and I was really awestruck hearing these devotees, the mood that they had. There's a certain mood the singer has, right? When they sing
Right.
a song, I want to hold your hand. There's so many different moods.
Right.
But I was here. They were giving their hearts and souls to the spiritual master, giving their whole lives to the spiritual master. And I was so touched by that devotion of giving oneself, I said, it was like, there was a feeling and a vibe I got that was so beautiful. It was so wonderful that the tears just came streaming down my face. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be beautiful if I gave my life to the spiritual master? Wouldn't it be beautiful if I gave my life to the spiritual master? It would be so beautiful. So that was it. And I decided to become a monk.
Right. That's a beautiful story. And you speak about this idea of reaching spiritual perfection. And I wonder if you could define what that might look like on a broader sense, because I think that's going to be unique, I suppose, to everybody, right? We all have our own unique purposes and unique creative abilities. So, I mean, what does it mean for any individual to reach a state?
There's a supreme person is the source. Some call him Allah, some call him Krishna, some call him Jehovah. But this universe doesn't come out of nothing. Sorry, Dr. Hawkins.
I agree.
This universe doesn't come out of nothing. There's a chain of causality here going on. You see, this one thing causes another thing. It's actually what's called the idea of the unmoved mover. Consider a whole row of dominoes, right? And they're all, one domino knocks another one. There has to be one domino that can move on its own, you see. So that original unmoved mover that has the power to move on its own, that's God, you see. There's a person out there who can move on his own. Who's a power, he set off everything. So when you can actually harmonize yourself with that supreme person, learn how to harmonize your thoughts, your words, your deeds, how to be in sync. Just like when I was a kid in high school, I was in the all-city orchestra. You see, I played second violin. So the first violin would tune his violin with a tuner, and we would all tune our instruments to his violin, you see. And that way we were in perfect harmony. So self-realization means you harmonize yourself with that original person. Whoever, it doesn't matter whether you call him Krishna, Allah, Jehovah, there's a supreme person out there, the source of all existence. You learn to harmonize, synchronize your thoughts, words, and deeds with that supreme person, then you're spiritually perfect.
Right.
It's true for Christians, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, everyone. It's the same principle.
Right.
Universal science of self-realization. It's not a particular religion. It's the science of self-realization. That's what I teach. Actually, I'm a Christian, Hare Krishna, because Jesus brought me to Krishna Consciousness.
Okay. And I was about to bring up the idea, there are all these different religions, there are all these different teachings, there's...
Religion is actually one. Different religions is a material concept.
That's true. That's true. So
it's a material concept.
Right.
Spiritually, religion is one.
Right.
The material concept of religion is many. It's a material concept.
And would you say that the idea of God and spirituality and religion has been very much materialized in our
culture yeah, they
today?
polluted it in so many ways.
Right. And what do you think the consequence of that is?
They turn into a process of God, give me this, give me that, give me. But that's not how do you approach God and asking him to serve you. That means you're putting yourself as the supreme and he has to be your servant. That's what religion, that's what goes on in the name of religion nowadays. Whatever you want, you go to the church, the synagogue, the mosque, and you ask God for a raise, you ask him for a wife, you ask him for this. That's not how you connect with God. That's using him as your servant. That you don't become God realized by taking God as your servant. You become God realized when you do what Christ did and give yourself totally to God.
Right.
That's how you become self-realized, doing what Christ did, or what Muhammad did, or what
Right.
Moses did. These are the self-realized persons. We have to learn what they did and do what they did.
Right. And they're serving this higher purpose beyond the individual self. And I think our culture today, especially, is very much serving it. I'm a teacher, and so, I work in schools, and I see in our school systems how we teach kids from an early age to very much have that mindset of me, focusing on the
Miseducation.
individual.
It's miseducation.
Right.
And it leads to Black Lives Matter and, some black people going up and shooting a policeman and chanting, "We hope he dies."
Right. I did see that. What are your thoughts on the issues that are, issues like Black Lives Matter, and, we see racism is an idea, a topic
Because
that's
they don't
huge.
understand, there is misidentification of the material body, you see. I'm not
Mhm.
black or white. I'm an eternal spiritual being. If you're wearing a white shirt, do you become a white shirt? If you're wearing a black shirt, do you become a black shirt? No, it's just that we're all one as spiritual beings, but we take, according to our karma, we have different types of bodies, that's all. We're
Right.
actually all one. And
Mm.
see, we whites in previous lifetimes, we were blacks, and the blacks were whites in previous lifetimes in the cycle of birth and death. We've been
Right.
blacks and whites and Chinese, and we've been animals and plants and germs and butterflies, and we've been everything in all our different incarnations. Why are they so caught up with this one particular body? I'm black. Oh, it's ridiculous. You're an eternal spiritual being. I know that. You have a black body by your karma. You have a black body. In terms
Right.
of black side, some of my closest friends have black bodies. It's not a big deal for me.
Right.
One of my godbrothers, Balabhadra Bhattacharya Das, very, very black body, but I don't see the bodies. I see
Mm.
the person within. I don't see the body.
Right. And
But someone who sees on the basis of the body, they're an illusion. That's not the self.
right. And I was about to say, we live in this illusion of separation within our society.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
We're not have, there's no proper educational system in this country.
No,
And the
and I
whole thing
agree.
is completely off the track.
I agree.
The whole
Uh,
thing is off the track. So I'm trying to bring it on the track again. It's a big job.
It absolutely is, because I would say the majority of people are still very much in this illusion of separation, right? And I
Oh
do
yeah,
think we are,
99.999%.
right. I do think we are experiencing more of a almost quantum awakening, in a sense, if you will. I feel that there's more people tuning into this oneness. Like there's something more. Like people don't.
There's a few. It's very small number tuned into higher consciousness.
Do you? How do you propose we? Me coming from like a teacher's perspective, how do you propose we bring this concept of oneness more into
Well,
mainstream?
my spiritual master's books should be very widely read. They're very powerful, um, very very powerful books. Like we have the Krishna book, for example. The books of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami actually have the whole world, whole spiritual world potentially within them if they can be very, very widely read and understood. The books of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami are very, very important literatures. And there's also this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. It becomes more and more popular. It's by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra one can become awakened. It's very, very powerful mantra for awakening one's spiritual consciousness.
Hmm.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's recommended in the Vedic scriptures as the remedy for all the difficulties of our present age.
Hmm. And do you suppose is because we look at like the schools, right? I don't see them necessarily implementing these types of teachings,
Oh, but
unfortunately.
definitely not. We have to, all we have to do is educate the voters and the demand Krishna conscious leadership, spiritually enlightened leadership. It requires mass education,
Right.
mass education.
'Cause-
We have to educate the public because it's a democracy. We have to educate the public that they will, unless you're actually a spiritually enlightened person, we don't want you in any kind of leadership position. That's what we have to. That's what we have to move in that direction.
right. And I would say our leaders are almost a reflection of ourselves, right? Because
Yeah,
we
they
vote
are
and
absolutely.
right,
They're nonsense. Bunch of nonsense. Voters
right,
are nonsense and leaders are nonsense. Okay.
right. And if we were to have these, spiritually conscious leaders, we would be working towards the betterment of humanity as opposed to the
And all
betterment.
living entities also.
Right,
You see,
right,
but especially humanity because this human form of life is meant by nature's way as the human as the species for liberation from the cycle of birth and death. The lower species can't really, although there are cases of dogs becoming spiritually enlightened, there are cases. It does happen sometimes in the animal kingdom. There's a very nice story in this connection, but there's time I can mention it. But the human life is meant for self-realization. That's our purpose as human beings, not for high technology. But self-realization is the purpose of human life.
right. And with self-realization, and everybody's going to have their own unique, like we talked about, own unique purpose, own unique way of reaching that. I mean, how have you gone about ex- uh, I would say music, I suppose, right? Expressing self-realization and teaching self-realization. What have you been able, this, I would say recently, in the past,
Well,
or
I have an
currently?
e-course. I have 26,000 people on my e-course. I send out a broadcast every day. Anybody who wants to get it, you just go to joincourse.com.
Hmm.
That's my biggest success right now is my e-course. Been going on for over a decade. I have tens of thousands of people enrolled in it.
Right. And with teaching like self-realization, I mean, what kind of tips do you give people to sort of break the cycle of conditioning, break
First of
this?
all, realize that you're not your material body. That's the
Mhm.
first thing. And second of all, you need to give up. You need to give up a diet that a violent diet like that. You need to give up a violent diet has to be given up. You shouldn't be eating animal flesh. You see, that's committing unnecessary violence. We don't need that. It's just for the tongue we eat meat. We don't need to eat meat, fish, eggs. Um, you should eat a diet of fruits, vegetables, dairy products, and grains, and offer them to God before eating. That eating becomes a holy sacrament. Just like in Christianity, you have a holy sacrament.
Mhm.
We got to have 4 times a year, a little wafer, 4 times a year. But in Krishna consciousness, we recommend every meal should be a holy sacrament. You should eat all your food you should offer to God before eating. No meat, no fish, no eggs. Offer all your fruits, vegetables, dairy products, and grains to God as an offering, and then partake of that food. And if you'll do that and you give up promiscuous sexual activities, give up intoxication, you know, don't waste your time gambling. These things are unnecessary. And chant the names of God according to your tradition. Chant Jesus or Allah or Jehovah or Hare Krishna. If you'll do this, you will have an amazing awakening. But do it as a regular daily practice. Start your day meditating on the holy names of God. You'll have an amazing awakening of consciousness within you.
Mhm.
See, actually, you can become qualified to see God directly, face to face, even while in this material world. Because God is omnipresent. He's present everywhere. So one can actually become qualified to see God face to face by this process of chanting and sanctified diet and giving up sinful activities.
Mhm. Right.
That's what we teach.
It's sort of a release of the material world, a release of the sort of commodified, almost you could say distractions that are meant to serve the purpose of the system that we're in, if you will.
The money-making capitalists are pushing forward a diet to make money for themselves, basically. Advertising and a thing, you know, McDonald's hamburgers, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Mm,
It's a whole thing. It's a money-making business, and they're exploiting us.
Right. No, definitely. And I mean, we look at these large scale corporations and we look at this, the whole world is almost essentially ruled by money right now. And for the, I guess you could say for the past, since the age of, geez, the last thousand, I would say 1,000 years, and you look at Western history, it has been all about material and and consuming. And uh, there's definitely been that disconnect from source.
Actually, been going on for 5,000 years, the
Wow.
materialistic consciousness. There's a whole series of 4 ages. The Satya Yuga was pure piety, 75%. Treta Yuga was 75% pious. Dwapara Yuga was 50% pious. The Kali Yuga is 25% pious, going down to 0. But this age began 5,000 years ago, the materialistic age. That's how deeply rooted we are in materialism right now. We're 5,000 years into materialism. It's
Right.
getting worse and worse and worse.
And since we continue down this path, I mean, we're seeing the destruction of the planet and
Absolutely.
the killing of
Wildfires
species,
now.
wildfires in California, especially right now, and the Amazon down in South America. And
Oh yeah, do you realize that in the last 50 years, we've lost 2/3 of our wildlife?
yeah,
2/3 of our wildlife. And it's predicted by climate experts, the human race is gonna go extinct by 2050. The human race will go extinct by 2050.
right,
That's how bad it is right
right.
now.
And I mean, so what are your thoughts on? Do you see us fixing this, correcting this? Where is your
Well,
uh,
I'm dedicated to doing it
mhm.
myself.
And
I'm working on a book called Deliver Your Mind, Deliver the World. My realization that can completely revolutionize world history.
right,
I'm
and
working on leading the world out of chaos. That's my website is called worldleader.com.
right,
I'm working on leading the whole world out of chaos if they can learn to take my leadership.
right. And would you say it's going to take each individual to step into this oneness and
Which
this
one?
interconnectivity?
That harmony, to be in harmony with God, it has to be done, and it can't be legislated. It has to be an individual choice, an individual realization. We have
Right,
to teach people how to live in perfect harmony with God. That's the whole bottom line.
right,
And every person we can convince to do that is another victory. And the beauty of this process is, when you become connected with God, you have an uplifting impact on the entire universe just by your mentality. Deliver your mind, deliver the world. You see, every person who actually tunes into this higher consciousness, they have an impact on the entire global consciousness. It's very powerful impact just by their thoughts, words, and deeds.
right,
So even if we get a small core of people doing this, it can have a huge world transforming impact on the whole history.
right. And I don't think individuals necessarily realize the type of impact that they can have on others, on the whole world, when they reach this purpose, when they reach, let's say,
That's
this.
why we're trying to educate everyone to do this. You see.
Mhm. Right, definitely. And I definitely resonate with that mission because I feel my own purpose, is to help others awaken to their own true purpose, to their own the realization that we are all interconnected, to the realization that, we're all one. The podcast is attempting to tell the story of interconnectedness, to remember, to realize, and it's never, I say the word disconnected from it a lot, but it's kind of a paradox because we're never truly disconnected, as you said. God is all around. It's always, and he's always there. And it's almost a paradox that we feel disconnected when in reality, that interconnection has never left us. And it's something that we can, in a moment's
God,
notice.
connecting potency is God Himself. We are all His expanded energy. So our oneness is that we're all His expanded energy. And the way we perfect our oneness is tuning in and harmonizing with Him. It's just like, again, in the example of the orchestra, you see, the instruments are connected when they all tune into the same channel. You see, they're all tuned into the common, everyone's tuned into the same note. That's how they become connected, by all being tuned into that common note. So that common center is God.
Mm.
You put God in the center, then we become connected. Otherwise, you can't. If you don't put God in, if you're not connected with God, you can't be interconnected. You have to be connected with God.
Right. Right. Because then we're all from that same source, the original source.
That's right. When you
Right.
connect with that original source, that makes you perfectly connected with everyone and everything.
Right.
You
And
see, just like I connect with you, but I can connect with Krishna. Your Krishna's expanded energy, and I'm also his expanded energy. So
right.
when I connect with Krishna, now I'll become perfectly connected with you also, because
Right.
you're expanded energy.
Right. And that makes us one in the same. And it's very grounding to embody that and feel that. And you know, when we approach our day to day from this energy, I think it really, it gives meaning, it gives purpose. And you know, I myself used to be very caught up in uh, my own the self-esteem and material, and wanting to be this popular person, and wanting to, you know, the status. And dis basically disavowing that, and not real and realizing that that's just a game, if you will, and tapping into this uh you know, interconnectivity and God. It's really transformed my way of being, and I feel like I'm in much more of my own, a, a natural state, if you will, a natural state of how I'm supposed to be living. And I only wonder what are your thoughts on, if we were to awaken everybody on the planet, what that would entail, what that would look like, what that might mean for.
That means when we die, we enter our original identities in the spiritual world. That's what it means.
Mm,
And we won't take birth again in the material world. We'll take, when you go to sleep, you'll wake up with Krishna or God in the spiritual world. That's what it means. It'll be our
right,
last birth in the cycle of birth and death, when we're up in the spiritual world, we're leaving this body. Otherwise, we come back again and
right.
again and again.
Only to continue to uh, try and learn the lesson and connect with God. And
Trouble is, the thing is, if one lives in a totally materialistic consciousness, he goes down to the lower species like a dog or a pig or a monkey.
right,
If your only interest is having sex, you can become a pig. The hog can have sex with his mother, sister, daughter. For him, it's all the same. It's just a total sex monger. You can become a hog in the next birth.
right,
You want to have sex every moment you get your hand on. You become a hog in your next birth. You see.
right,
So this is very, even if you just begin this process, seriously, you're guaranteed at least a human birth to continue your process of awakening. If you
right,
have no interest in self-realization, you just want sense gratification, you go down to the lower species, dogs, hogs, pigs, monkeys, etc.
right. And that which you describe of, you know, those almost pleasures are what's pushed in our society, unfortunately. And
Absolutely. Playboy
it's
magazine,
right.
etc.
It's what's commercialized. It's
Yeah,
what's many
absolutely.
people view as most important, which is, you know, unfortunate. And it just makes me feel like by losing this connection, we've built our society on the wrong foundation, when in reality.
Oh, the thing is the whole thing's a joke.
Right, right. And
Not even a human society, it's an animal society.
right,
Polished animalism is all it really is. It's not human society.
right. And it's this lower state of consciousness. And but I do have faith, and because I'm seeing, you know, maybe I truly believe we attract others in our lives with similar vibrations, similar levels of consciousness. And, you know, because I've been working on my own and feel this interconnectivity, maybe I'm just seeing more others and seeking out others who feel the same. But I do feel like the consciousness level is raising, and it feels like only a matter of time, if we can do it in time, to where we reach this almost fifth dimension level of consciousness collectively. And uh, I'm not sure if we'll be able to do it in time, because we look at the destruction to the planet that we've.
It's only my goal. It's only
Right,
my goal to bring. The fifth dimension is beyond, actually into the spiritual dimension beyond time and space, even while in this present body. Certainly that's my goal, to deliver the world to the fifth dimension. That's certainly my goal.
Right. And I think that's all we can, as individuals,
And
work towards,
well,
right?
one has to, if you want to bring the world to the fifth dimension, you have to be totally situated in the fifth dimension yourself.
Right.
The first business is to save ourselves.
Right.
The second business is to save the world.
Right. Absolutely. Because if we can't save ourselves, then
That's right.
we're
You can
not in
only,
this space.
can only propagate the level of realization that you have personally achieved. You can't propagate something beyond what you've achieved, actually.
Right.
If you want the highest perfection in the human society, you have to attain the highest perfection yourself.
Right. And
That's a great, whatever state in the Bhagavad Gita, yad yadatarate shreshtas tattare vetaro jana sayad pramanam kurute lokas tadvanadartate. Whatever a great man does, the common people follow in his footsteps. Whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So that's what you have to become, an exemplary person in the fifth dimension if you want to bring the fifth dimension to this planet.
right. And I think that shows that anybody can be a leader if they achieve this self-mastery and they achieve this
They'll naturally be a leader. They'll naturally be.
Right. Exactly. Because people will see that and resonate with that higher consciousness and want to achieve that within themselves. And it's like that domino effect that you mentioned earlier, where being spiritually, achieving a spiritual perfection within oneself can only cause others to essentially seek to achieve that within themselves too. So it's truly a beautiful, I would say, process, because I feel like I'm still on the journey of, I try not to always say seeking, because I realize that all that is here now anyways. Like, God is here, perfection is here, and I'm grateful for where I am, but always looking to still disavow certain beliefs and conditions and ideas that I have that are ingrained from the material side of me that still like has impulses. Like, I feel like a lot of those impulses sometimes still come out, and it's about managing and balancing and continuing to learn. So and I think a lot of people are in a similar boat where they there's these distractions that continue to exist just based on the world and culture that we're in. And so it can be very difficult to reach almost this stage of perfection that we talk about. And so I was wondering if you could lead us in a chant to bring about awakening, to sort of finish up the conversation, something that, something that feels that comes to your heart. It doesn't have to be, I guess, however that resonates with you, something to bring about a connection with God or interconnectivity.
I have time to get my drum? I have like.
Oh, absolutely.
Let me get my drum.
All right.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama
That was beautiful. Truly
The
beautiful.
Maha mantra. Maha means great. Ma means, this is Sanskrit. Ma means mind and Cha means deliver. So this is the great chanting for deliverance. We encourage the whole world now to chant Hare Krishna. And this way you can awaken your original identity beyond your material body and be perfectly connected with God and everything that exists.
It's truly beautiful. And I feel that connection just from sitting here, listening, chanting. I was sort of silently chanting along, and it was truly beautiful. It was truly beautiful. And I think the work that you're doing is incredibly powerful and needed in this time. And, you know, I so resonate with what you're trying to do. And I hope that the world can follow your lead in due time. And, you know, I think that I think that your mission is what everyone needs to be working towards. And I'm glad that you're stepping up and, you know, being the leader that we need.
I'm asking everyone to join me in this mission. Please, everyone, join me.
Where can the listeners go if you know they resonate?
www.joincourse.com.
All right.
They want to write me an email. It's SD for Sankarshan Das. It's SD@worldleader.com. Write me an email.
Wonderful, and I'll put all those links in the episode description below, so people can click on down.
Send me a link. I can send this broadcast out to my 26,000 subscribers.
Wonderful. I definitely will. I'll have it out probably within about a week. So I usually take about a week within editing. And
really a pleasure being with you, Evan.
Yeah, it's truly a pleasure.
Where are you located?
I'm in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. I've never been up there.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Lots of nature. Everybody is very, very friendly. It's a very friendly state. I grew up here and I kind of moved around I was in Boston for a little while. I was actually out in California for about a half year, and I ended up coming back to New Hampshire in February, and it's beautiful here. So I really love it.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Nice
So
talking with you.
it
Hare
was a
Krishna.
pleasure. All right.